Exodus 29:7 says, "Take the anointing oil and pour it on his head." Very simple, right? But what most people never talk about is where that oil came from and what it costs to produce it. Because in biblical times, one of the most sacred anointing oils was extracted from the head of the ram. And the process that oil went through before it ever touched anyone's head begins with selection. Not every ram is qualified. The one chosen had to be without blemish, set apart from the rest of the flock before it even knew why. And I want to ask you, have you always felt a little different, a little set apart in a way you cannot explain? Like you felt things more deeply than the people around you, or you saw things that other people could not see? Maybe you carried a sensitivity that sometimes felt more like a burden than a gift. That's not a flaw. That was God marking you before you even understood what you were being marked for. You were selected, and selected things get pressed and processed differently than everything else. Because here's what happened next. Once that ram was chosen, it was put in boiling water. Not warm water, not uncomfortable water, boiling. The heat was intentional, it was precise and sustained, because without that level of heat, nothing locked inside could be released. And I need you to sit with that for 1 second. Think about the season of your life that felt like it was destroying you. Like the pressure that came from every direction just would not stop. Like your relationships burned down. Like your opportunities collapsed. The losses that brought you to your knees, that was not God abandoning you. That was God extracting something from you that could only come out under that kind of heat. The anointing on your life had to be heated before it could be released. And then came the stretching. After the boiling, the tissue was physically stretched and pressed deliberately with sustained force until every last drop of oil was pulled out. Nothing gentle about that, nothing comfortable about that. And in real life, that stretching looked like being pushed past every limit you ever thought you had. The moment you genuinely said, "I cannot take this anymore," you took some more. And somehow you took more than that. That was not you breaking. That was God pressing out of you an anointing that your comfortable season never could produce. You cannot step into your calling without being stretched. But here's what most people don't talk about. As the oil rose to the surface during the boiling and the pressing process, right, impurities rose with it. And they had to be skimmed off carefully, repeatedly. Every time the heat increased, something else that did not belong came to the surface and it had to go. So in your life, that looked like the friendships that quietly fell away, the version of you that had to die, the mindsets, the habits, the attachments that got stripped in your hardest season. You called it a loss, but God called it purification. And everything that was skimmed off, what remained, it made you more pure, more potent, and more powerful. And what was left after all of that, after the selection, the boiling, the stretching, the pressing, the skimming, was pure, sacred, precious oil, set apart for one purpose, and that was to consecrate, to mark someone as chosen and called for something greater than themselves. That is what Exodus 29:7 is talking about when it says, pour the oil on his head. That oil represents everything it costs to produce. And when it was poured, it meant something. It carried weight. It carried authority. It carried the evidence of a process that most people never get to see. So I need you to hear this today. The hard season, they are not a detour from your calling. They were the process of producing it. The boiling, the stretching, the pressing, the purifying. That was God making the oil. And everything you have been through, every layer that was stripped, every season that felt like it was breaking you, that is exactly what your anointing is right now. That is why your story hits different than everyone else. That is why your prayers carry weight. That is why when you open your mouth and you speak from what you actually have lived through, people feel it because it cost something, because it was real, and because it was made the hard way. Keep going.